Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we say the United States is a country of laws and China, man, bad. Anyways, this is gonna be another one of those videos. So if you don't like those videos, don't watch, you little crybabies. Anyways, before we get into the show today, I will remind you, SiliconDojo.com exists. I'm very excited. Next week is going to be an exciting week for SiliconDojo.com. We do these fireside chats, so we're going to have Louis Rossman in on Monday. So he's going to be talking about Fulu, not Futo, Fulu, his new project that he's working on. And we're going to have David Cox with IBM. So he's a bigwig over at IBM's AI division, and we're going to have him on Thursday. So basically, you can come here, you can register for those fireside chats, and then come in, listen as I have conversations with these folks, and you too can ask your particular question. So if you're interested in that, go to SiliconDojo.com. And with that, let's get into the story. Let's get into the story of China, man, bad. So this is new. U.S. judge says China's Huawei technologies must face criminal charges for racketeering and other charges. So basically, Huawei has made our government mad. Ergo, our law enforcement is going to go after Huawei because that's how the global legal system works. At least in the minds of senile old racist white guys in the White House. So I think this is kind of interesting because it'll be curious what happens here in regards to how the continued work our government has done to try to hold back Huawei's development around the rest of the world. So one of the big things that's happened recently is, so the Biden administration has this AI diffusion rule, which basically the idea was that NVIDIA and other companies couldn't sell high quality artificial intelligence hardware to China in order to suppress the Chinese folks. Huawei specifically has been creating their own AI hardware. Trump comes in and goes, oh my golly, China man ain't doing what we telling them to do. And so one of the interesting things is Trump came out like a month or two ago and basically said he would legally go after, or our government would legally go after, entities, companies, organizations around the world that purchase Huawei equipment. The idea being, since we may have seen some of the technology that Huawei is using out of the corner of our eye at some point in the past, we control how their products are able to be sold around the world. So the idea being is that if a company in Saudi Arabia buys Huawei AI hardware, that company in Saudi Arabia is now violating our export controls. And now you might be sitting there going, well, it's a company in Saudi Arabia, yes. So do any Americans own that company? No. Do any Americans invest in that company? No. So that is a completely and utterly Saudi Arabian company, yes. And they're buying from Huawei, which is a Chinese company, yes. So if it's a Saudi Arabian company buying from a Chinese company, why would we have the legal ability? What senile, racist bastard in the White House would think that we have the legal authority to go after the Saudi Arabian company? It's like, well, because have you not heard of manifest destiny? We, or they believe we are the supreme culture of the entire world. Ergo, as the supreme culture of the entire world, we have the right to put our thumb on any damn person we please, right? We are a country of the rule of law, and we will make sure we smack the shit out of you with our rules, even if they don't make a damn bit of sense. Anyways, this is, I think, as I've said many times, this is going to be bad for us at the end of the day. On the 5-year mark, maybe this works out for us. On the 20, 30-year mark, this puts us well behind. A U.S. judge has ruled that China's Huawei Technologies, a leading telecoms equipment company, must face criminal charges. Right? So are our presidents going to face criminal charges for starting illegal wars? Hey, remember when we invaded Iraq over fabricated intelligence and 1 million Iraqis died. So does this mean George Bush is going to have to worry about, rotting for the rest of his life in Leavenworth or something like that? Don't be ridiculous, Eli. It's entirely different. How's it different? He's an old white man. Oh, I hate this timeline. I hate this timeline so much. Must face criminal charges in a wide-reaching case alleging it stole technology and engaged in racketeering, wire and bank fraud, and other crimes. U.S. District Judge Ann Donnelly on Tuesday rejected Huawei's request to dismiss the allegations in a 16-count federal indictment against the company, saying in a 52-page ruling that its arguments were premature. The U.S. accuses Huawei and some of its subsidiaries of plotting to steal U.S. trade secrets, installing surveillance equipment that enabled Iran to spy on protesters during the 2009 anti-government demonstrations in Iran, which, it's bad, but where do we get involved in that? And of doing business in North Korea despite U.S. sanctions. Damn you, Chinaman. Don't you understand? White men told you no. Anyways, in his January 2019 indictment, the Justice Department accused Huawei of using a Hong Kong shell company called Skycom to sell equipment to Iran in violation of U.S. sanctions, and charged its chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou, with fraud by misleading the HSBC Bank about the company's business dealings in Iran. So we can actually take a look at the Department of Justice, their little news release that they put out back in 2020 for this. Chinese telecommunications conglomerate Huawei and subsidiaries charged in racketeering conspiracy and conspiracy to steal trade secrets. A superseding indictment was returned yesterday at federal court in Brooklyn, charging Huawei Technologies, the world's largest telecommunications equipment manufacturer, and 2 U.S. subsidiaries with conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corruption Organizations Act, the RICO Act. As revealed by the government's independent investigation and review of court filings, the new charges in this case relate to the alleged decades-long efforts by Huawei and several of its subsidiaries, both in the U.S. and the People's Republic of China, to misappropriate intellectual property, including from 6 U.S. technology companies, in an effort to grow and operate Huawei's business. The misappropriated intellectual property included trade secret information and copyrighted works such as source code and user manuals for internet routers, antenna technology, and robot testing technology. Huawei USA, and FutureWay agreed to reinvest the proceeds of this alleged racketeering activity in Huawei's worldwide business, including in the United States. The means and methods of the alleged misappropriation included entering into confidential agreements with owners of the intellectual property and then violating the terms of the agreements by misappropriating the intellectual property for the defendant's own commercial use, recruiting employees for other companies, and directing them to misappropriate their former employers' intellectual property, and using proxies such as professors working at research institutions to obtain and provide the technology to the defendants. As part of the scheme, Huawei allegedly launched a policy instituting a bonus program to reward employees who obtain confidential information from competitors. And then it keeps going on to talk about Huawei bad. In here, let's see here. Efforts to steal trade secrets and other sophisticated U.S. technologies were successful through the methods of deception described above. The defendants obtained non-public intellectual property relating to internet router source code, cellular antenna technology, and robotics. As a consequence of its campaign to steal this technology and intellectual property, Huawei was able to drastically cut its research and development costs and associated delays, giving the company a significant and unfair competitive advantage. When confronted of the wrongdoing, the defendants allegedly made repeated misstatements to U.S. officials. The superseding indictment also includes new allegations about Huawei and subsidiaries' involvement in business and technology projects in countries subject to U.S., EU, or UN sanctions, such as Iran and North Korea, as well as the company's efforts to conceal the full scope of that involvement. So basically, we put sanctions on countries, and therefore China must follow the sanctions of the superior race. We are the superior, they are the inferior, and if they step out of line, they must be punished. And so this case is going to go forward. It'll be curious to see, again, within our legal framework, whether this actually gets anywhere. The main thing to be thinking about there is just then how does the Trump administration and the other administrations to follow, the Democrat administration afterwards to follow, how they then use our legal apparatus to continue going after China. Do they maintain to try to make it appear to be illegal because it's working, or will it fail and then they'll just start going to extra legal ways for going after China, because the most important thing is to put the thumb on China, not to actually try to improve things. So it'll be curious to see how this moves forward. The other thing to be thinking about, as this moves forward, is this whole idea of how will China respond to this, right? We have been throwing our weight around a lot because we feel, as we've been told, as citizens of this country, we've been told we are the preeminent economy and military of the world and will forever be. Even though we got our asses handed to us by the Afghanis. I will remind you that, right? They talk about us going to war with China, and it seems to be like fait accompli that we will simply win that war. We got our asses fucking handed to us by the Afghanis. So, maybe we shouldn't be so focused on war with China at this point in time. But anyways. We'll see how this goes. I think there's going to be more and more of these attacks against China as the power of the United States continues to wane. Basically, our power will continue to wane. They will realize our power is waning. Therefore, they will care less and less about our idiotic policies, which means we will respond ever more harshly. And where does this cycle end? I don't think this cycle is going to end very well. As far as what is my opinion, right? Oh, you're just anti-US. No. We need to invest in manufacturing capacity in the United States. We need to deal with zoning. I mean, think about this, right? Trump administration talks about all these factories that are going to be coming back to the United States. Just think about this for a second. In most of our major cities, especially where gentrification has occurred, all of our industrial areas, so the waterfront areas and the places that there used to be factories, have literally been turned into condos. Like, have you ever thought about this before? Think about how many square feet of industrial factory area has been turned into luxury condos. I talk about that when I have my business, right? When I have my business, I own my little commercial building. Our commercial building was actually zoned for light industrial. So it was in downtown Baltimore. It was a zone for light industrial. So I could have had, small scale manufacturing going on in that building. I sold that building to a property developer that turned it into 3 apartments. Think about that. That's taking zoned industrial property and turning it into residential space. Now think about that on scale, and think about what are we doing in the United States just to make sure we have enough areas to put factories if in fact we wanted to put factories in there. Think about it with the trade schools, training people to be able to work in factories. Think about it for business people, right? For me, if I wanted to go out and create a software development company, I know how to do that. If I want to create a startup for one of these other technology things, I know how to do that. If I want to go out and create a burger restaurant, I can figure that one out. Here's the thing, and I'll be honest with you, right? If I had an idea for a physical widget, right? If I had the idea for the dog dating app widget, this widget will allow dogs within a certain geographic area to know that other dogs want to date them and bring them together. I have no idea how to start this business. I mean, like everything from the equipment that's required, even something as simple as this is just a remote control for this camera. Everything from the equipment required in order to actually manufacture this, to the workflow for how you would manufacture this, for the testing and regulation, just because I could probably design the circuits, to be honest with you, but then validating that or testing that to make sure it's safe. How do I get these buttons Like we don't have that training in the United States. Think about this in the startup world, right? So much in the startup world. Jason Calacanis, Techstars, Y Combinator, the whole nine yards. Where is any emphasis on how to actually manufacture, 2 million widgets per year? And that's what I think we need to do. I think we need to focus on ourselves. As a Buddhist, as a bad Buddhist, I think we need to focus on ourselves. We need to focus on our education and training system. We need to focus on our logistics, our zoning, and that kind of thing. And we need to focus on creating the factory owners of the next generation. That's what we need to focus on. But instead, it's modern America. It's modern America. It's not our fault. The most important thing to understand is the situation that we find ourselves in is not our fault, right? The castrated poodles in Congress right now that are pissing on themselves all the time to prove what alpha dogs they are, they all agree it's not our fault. The reason that we're in this shitty situation is because of China, man. Because of those people, because of those people, because of those people. How dare you blame me for my situation? It's ridiculous. But anyways, that's just one man's opinion. That's just one man's opinion. So anyways, this will go forward. I don't know. It's criminal charges. Maybe there'll be jail time. But then they're going to do jail time. How are they going to arrest certain people? They got the CFO of Huawei a few years ago in Canada, and then she was traded on a prisoner exchange. Right? She was a hostage. You ever think about that? Certain people are prisoners, and other people are hostages. We traded X number of prisoners for Y number of hostages. Certain people, right? Just one of those things to think about. Anyways, she was given back after that hostage exchange. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And then also how this starts, the ramifications of this exploding out. Again, when you start thinking about things like, what's it called? The right to arrest people, extradition rights. They're the right to arrest people in other countries, right? If Huawei's, these charges go against Huawei, then are Huawei officials going to have to worry about getting arrested in other countries? At what point is Xi just going to be fucking tired of it? At what point does Xi start saying, well, if you're going to arrest our people in other countries, we see absolutely no problem with arresting your people in other countries? What happens when the current superpowers start collecting hostages? It's going to bring a whole new light to being a techno king in the modern world. What happens when Elon Musk's plane lands on some Pacific island or whatever in order to refuel, and a Chinese SWAT team boards the plane, drags his ass out, and throws him in a gulag in China? I mean, oh, the world is not as weird as it could be, and I feel like we are going down that route. So what do you think about the judge allowing the criminal charges to go forward with Huawei? What do you think about this? With the DOJ charging Huawei with stealing trade secrets, those types of things, selling to sanctioned countries, and the whole nine yards. Even if you agree with this, do you think it works? Do you think this will functionally work? Put your thoughts down below. Do you remember with Silicon Dojo, I am bringing in real technology professionals in order to talk to us about the real world of technology. So if you're interested in that, go to silicondojo.com and sign up for whatever fireside chat you would like to join. Leave us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, an awesome comment, or a horrible comment. Remember, it's the modern world of social media. All that matters is that interaction. And with that, see y'all later.